This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everyone. This is Novo Mana, and welcome to the Technology Review Council. And we're very, very pleased, as always. We have some wonderful vendors and, if you will, CEOs and founders and idea people presenting to us. But today, I'm very excited about having Laura Rusnalova present to us. And I say this always, and I have a little smile on my face. We down for coffee today. I asked her what the name of why she named it that, and I'll have her tell you the story of it. But it has a lot of sense, and I think you're going to see an exceedingly different platform with, I think, striking us just about where we need to be looking at, and that is how do we get people growing in our organization? We hear the great resignation, all these kind of strange things, retention and attrition and blah blah. In all honesty, you treat people well and they will stay with you. You keep them challenged in that. So I think Laura has a really interesting and very inventive uh, uh, approach to the problem. So, Laura, if I would ask you just please introduction and then maybe go into your slide deck. And I'm going to give you the presentation rights again one more time, and that way
sure.
you can go ahead and do that for us. And I don't want to forget that our partners, the IRM organization, is in conjunction with technology in the Technology Review Council with Collective HR Solutions. They have brought a lot of great people, referred some great vendors, and really provide an excellent, shall we say, jumping point for anybody else who wants to continue their education in the HR technology space. That is the place where I grew up, and if you want to be like me, join IRM. I'll leave it at that. And those that don't want to be like me, that's still fine. Let's go ahead and give you that the rights there, and it should be all yours now.
Yeah, sure. So, no, thank you enough again for giving me the stage. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I do really appreciate you making the time for it. And I am hoping that it's not going to be just me presenting today, but we'll get to a stage where we all talk, we have a debate, and whenever you feel like asking a question or commenting or making an observation, please, I encourage you to do so. So,
Yes.
as a quick,
By the way, this crowd is not shy, but we're also not seeing your screen yet.
oh, I just wanted to give you a quick
Oh,
introduction
okay,
on
okay.
myself
I just wanted
without
to make sure. That's
distracting,
right.
and then yeah, this is just to give you a little bit of color of how Down for Coffee came into place, and then I'll share my screen and I'll walk you through the functionality if that's okay.
Yes, please.
Yeah. So, as a quick introduction, my name is Laura. My background is in financial institutions. I spent my entire career in relatively large organizations, most recently at JP Morgan in their investment banking team in London for the past 7 years, and before that at Ernst & Young and Bloomberg. And what I experienced during my career, that even in this large successful organizations with healthy budgets and good intent, there is really almost nothing is done to facilitate meaningful and quality human connections. And at the same time, I really saw the power of connections, how much you can achieve if you know the right people and you have access to them at the right time. And the lack of this effort to improve connectivity among employees didn't make sense to me. This is just because the course of our entire career depends on the people we meet along the way, how much knowledge you gain or how successful you are. Sorry, is it? There is it's chat. Is it not? Is it your? Sorry, I just saw the chat. So the point, what didn't make sense to me is that the course of our entire career depends on the people we meet. Like how much knowledge you gain and whether you are successful in a specific role will entirely depend whether you are lucky or not to meet people and colleagues who happen to be your mentors. New skills, they are more likely to be acquired and retained if they were passed to you by your friendly colleague rather than acquired through a formal course. And even your next job, you're more likely to get it because of your connections and not necessarily your skills. So let's take an example of JP Morgan. 250,000 employees globally. Only 12,000 of them just in London. So whenever question I had, whatever need I had at any point in time, I'm sure there was always someone who could have helped. The question is, how do I access it? How do I know whom to reach out to, and how do I tap into this pool of extremely talented people that hypothetically I already have easy access to? So, and that problem does not only relate to large organizations like JP Morgan, even in much smaller companies, people hardly know anyone outside of their immediate teams. And now I'd like all of us to just stop and just imagine how many opportunities you can unlock even now if you tap even into a fraction of the network that is already at your fingertips, that's at your workplace. So, and that's exactly what Down for Coffee is designed to do. So we developed, so maybe now I'll share my screen and I'll tell you and show some. So that's, I don't know if you had a chance to check us before. So do you see the screen? Yeah. So, but that's a simple yet powerful tool that matches employees for one-on-one informal virtual meetings and on-demand mentoring sessions. And I really would like to think of it as two big blocks, right? One is social connectivity, and then mentoring, which we are hoping to disrupt the industry. Let me start with the social element, and then we will move to mentoring, and I'll tell you our vision, how we see the industry, where we see the industry is moving, and what's in our in terms of the product roadmap, where we see what we are planning to develop. Creating connections within existing talent pool, we are filling in a much needed gap in HR tech industry, being at the same time an engagement connectivity platform and also a learning management systems. And companies really can use it in a number of ways. Like, for example, for onboarding, we spoke to so many companies and they tell us that what they realized when they had to shift to remote work because of COVID is that their onboarding practices are absolutely not equipped for remote work. Normally, a new person comes to the office and then they just get attached to a specific team. And there is hardly any occasion for them to meet and talk to someone outside of their immediate teams. And now it's very difficult to do when people are not physically in the same office. Another use case is bringing people together and promoting cooperation. During my banking career, I've done a lot of M&A transactions. And what I saw is that after the merger is done and all these nice and hopeful announcements are made, the hard part starts. How do you bring people from different companies to cooperate and work together, especially if the cultures of these two firms are not exactly the same. So this is not an easy task. But if you meet your colleague outside of an official setting, outside of formal work environment, and just have a casual chat, that's when the ice breaks. To improve mental health by alleviating the feeling of loneliness, to increase engagement by giving your junior resource ability to speak to seniors, feel needed and appreciated at work, to help with diversity and inclusion. So the diversity and inclusion is a big topic, and a lot of companies trying to improve it in their organizations. But what is most of the time overlooked is it's not enough just hire female and minorities. What is most of the time overlooked is that these underrepresented groups have their own unique challenges when promoting their careers. It takes a lot of courage for them to speak up and to approach. So there needs to be a system that eliminates this barrier of the first step and the need for this first step and make connections easier. And that's exactly what Down for Coffee is designed to do, to improve innovation and facilitate collaboration across different teams, and of course to promote growth by making mentoring accessible, by upskilling your people with your existing resources, but I'll get to mentoring later. So we spent quite some time talking to companies and trying to design a set of features that would be effective for both employers and employees. And before I start walking you step by step, I'd like to mention a few things. Number one, it's automatic. Matching happens automatically, and scheduling, the system takes into account people's availabilities, either because they gave it manually or they connected their calendars. And also our algorithm makes sure you meet as many new people as possible. It's very flexible. As an admin of an account, you can create custom matching rules. We call it campaigns, and I'll show you how to create it. It's remote first. We have built-in video capability, as well as we are plugged into Slack and Teams. But it also can work in a physical setting, because the matching happens and then people can meet in person. We provide analytics so that you can measure success. And we've built a few integrations with more to come. And the mentoring is indeed, we are really trying to reimagine how the mentoring is done in the future of work. So as an admin of an account, we create an account for you. There are a few ways how you can upload the users. If you're using MS Active Directory, then or if you're using Teams plugin, it's automatic. You don't even have to do anything. With a simple drag and drop of a CSV file, you can upload whatever information you want on your users. And then you can create, using that information, you can create your own custom matching rules. So for example, if the priority of organization is, say, onboarding in a remote setting, you can create campaign where you say, okay, I want in the next few months, everyone who is tagged as a newcomer to be matched with their colleagues who share similar department or share similar office or share similar seniority level across different departments. So you really play with the rules, and with our template, you can pretty much set any permutation of a rule. So and that's the example of a campaign. So think of it, you put, obviously, you give the name, you put the date, you choose the frequency, how often people get matched, when and how. You can say either anytime, any day, whenever people are ready and available for a meeting, or you can ignore people's availabilities and say that you want all the meetings to happen at a specific time of a specific week, day of the week. And then in terms of the rules, think of it as two groups. I want this group of users to be matched with second group of users, and then you define your groups of users. You say all of my users or a specific group. If you choose specific group, this is all the attributes and characteristics that you uploaded yourself on your user. So it's going to be custom for each organization. So if you upload a department, you will be able to choose a department. If you upload a seniority, you can choose seniority. And then to be matched with, you say colleagues who share similar attribute, whatever attribute, but have different other attribute, or you can say you want matchings to happen within the same group, or everyone but outside this group, or everyone in a company. And then you set the frequencies for these two different sets of users. And as a end user, i.e. your employee, you get invited to the platform. If you're using MS Teams or Slack plugin, you don't even have to get invited. It's automatically already in your on your workspace. You just give us your frequency setting, how often you're down for coffee, your interests, and then give us your availability either by connecting calendar or manually providing the availability. Once the mentoring with our platform.
I'm sorry, Laura. This is Nov. Do you mind kind of pausing at this one? I have a couple of questions, but I'm wondering if any of the audience have anything that you covered a lot of ground there, and I think that may have already, like I say, started some questions in my mind. Sure. So let me ask the audience: do you have any questions of Laura? I certainly always have. So let me bow to anyone out in the audience who may have a question that they'd like to pose. Okay. I always take silence as, they're enraptured is what it is right now. So, so my question to you is this. I know that you and I spoke before, and I think this is kind of a fairly key point, that in all honesty, because I'm going to be speaking with people, that in a sense you have a global system already in place to a degree. you basically can, I can speak the language of the people in my office. I could be in, Ukraine or in Japan or whatever, and I can still use your tool very effectively. The question I have then is, are you moving or have you already moved to the multilingual display of things? So in other words, your screens
Correct.
and so on.
Yeah, it's yeah. It is the system is already built in a way that adding localization is going to be very easy. It's just a matter of us translating it to whatever language, and then it's very, very easy to implement. Yes.
Right. That's a very, very, I think, very
Yeah,
easy
yeah,
thing.
yeah. It's localized indeed, and we tried to play around because our first pilot was actually a company in Russia, and then that's why we built in the localization, and there were already some strengths in Russian, but then we just thought, okay, let us grow first, finalize the features, and then we just introduce the localization.
Beautiful. And then the standpoint, you and I talked about this, and I think that was very key. I have seen, I won't say something similar. Let's not downplay the fact that Down for Coffee has got a very different and unique way of approaching this. But the large engagement systems really have a threshold that is, let's call it minimally 500, but probably using the thousands where they play better. The idea that you've got a large organization, nobody knows each other. But you and I, when we talked last time, I think you mentioned that you had something as small as a small law
Correct.
office or something. So would you
Correct.
speak to that a little bit?
So yes, it's fascinating because when we were just studying the market and before even building the product, we thought that our sweet spot is 500 plus, so that the companies can get the full benefit. But we see a lot of interest actually from small companies, and anything from 100 employees company works fantastically because we have one firm, 100 people. It's a software company in UK. During COVID, they opened offices in India and in Bulgaria. And they say that thanks to Down for Coffee, they managed to speak to people that would take months otherwise to get to know these new people in different locations. And even on that small scale company, right, they were giving me another example quite recently that they hired a new employee, and then they have this initiative, Wednesday Wellbeing, where they use Down for Coffee, specifically disregarding people's availability, saying, I want all the meetings to happen on Wednesday from 11:30 to 12. And then people are just randomly get matched. And then this new hire, he just a few months later, he speaks to another, one thing leads to another. They ask, okay, what's your background? What have you been doing? And through this social, informal communication, the leader on another project in a completely different team, he finds out that that new hire possesses a skill that they were looking for and trying to recruit for a couple of months already. So that they just stand out of the all of a sudden they just go and reassign that person to the project that they try to make a hire. So that you see this as I was saying earlier, right? This the problem that we hardly speak anyone outside of our immediate teams is not only in large organizations, it's everywhere. Like even if it's in a small company of 50, people hardly know each other unless it's like some really progressive startup where everybody's sitting on the same floor, but people hardly speak.
Yeah, and I have to say, and I don't want to dominate the conversation. I'll ask once while in the audience. If you've got any questions, pop them in the chat or just unmute and please ask it. But so I mean, the substance of what you've shown today, and the reason I wanted to kind of stop before we got to the mentor, because this is a very non I want to say there's not a lot of trouble to launch this piece. In other words, it's very self-driven. It's not somebody has to administer and communicate and do a lot. It's just basically the need to find, connect, and maybe have a dialogue with somebody. And as you said, growing your network is something that leads to other conversations, personal, career-wise, whatever the case may be. I'm curious a little bit about the fact. So you have department, and you probably have even the ability to load a directory. So somebody said, somebody needs to go talk to Laura. Okay, well, we only have one Laura here. I don't know who she is, last name, but here's Laura on the directory. And so you've got a way to find these people quickly. You've got it by department.
your organization, and that really helps you solve a lot of issues.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. And I'm curious about the idea. If I, I always say departments. I need to go talk to somebody in finance. Well, it's a big department, and I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking for. Do you, on your roadmap, let's put it that way, do you have the idea that maybe you would then look at functions within the organization, not by department name, because sometimes within any department, there are lots of different roles within there.
No, sorry for not being clear, but
No, please.
every like when you set up an account, you upload whatever information you want. Department is just illustrative that I've given.
Oh, okay. Okay,
You
great.
can put a function and you name it as you want. It's just literally a drag and drop of a CSV file, and that it just will treat the first row of your file as the name of the column, and then it will create all these different columns with whatever information you upload. And you can put anything you want: department, function, seniority level, location, office, even language they speak, gender, ethnic background, whatever information you will want to use to create these custom matching rules.
Great. It almost reminds me that like having a kind of a meta tag on your profile, your whole list, like a YouTube, where I can categorize these videos of these kind of things, and if I'm searching for that, I'm going to hit that eventually. So I think it's an excellent idea. So I'm gonna stop at that point for my questions because I have others, but I'll just keep on going. Audience, one more time. Anyone have anything else that they'd like clarified or explained for Laura? Okay, well, let's just kick on back into it. Thanks.
So for your employees, so as said, right, there are three ways to how the matchings happen. One is completely randomly based on individuals' availability, frequency setting, and that's pretty much it, and interest. Secondly, based on these rules that admin create, we call it campaign. And thirdly, user initiated, and that's the basis for our on-demand mentoring. I'll move there once we finish these slides. So what happens when there is a match? So people receive an email notifying them that there is a match. If they're using Slack or MS Teams plugin, then the notifications will come inside Teams in a chat, so you don't even have to go anywhere. They need to confirm a meeting either through MS Teams, Slack, or coming to the platform and pressing the button confirm. Once the meeting is confirmed, if it's MS Teams, then the meeting gets generated, goes to Outlook calendars with the link for the call. Or if they're using our web application, this button gets activated 1 hour before the meeting, and it's a video call. Both individuals need to confirm before they know the identity of each other. So after the meeting, there is a little feedback form where we ask, probably you don't see it well, where we ask very simple questions. Did you meet? Yes or no? Did you know the person before? Yes, no, knew a little bit, but never had a chance to speak. What came out of the meeting? And 2 optional fields where people can leave a note to themselves, not to forget something important from the meeting, or to send a note to HR if it's a part of whatever campaign. And that also gives a great tool. It basically allows your employees to speak up. And then all of that feeds into the history tab of your account, where you see the history of all your meetings, whom you met, on which day, which note you left to yourself, so that you don't forget. We know that Google pioneered a very similar product years ago. It's called Lunch Ninja, where people are randomly matched for lunches. And we've spoken to a number of people using that tool. And the feedback we're getting that it's great, it's amazing. They met so many interesting people, but the problem was that a year later, they absolutely didn't remember whom they met, what they spoke about. So that's the reason why we built this history tab, so that people actually remember and can leave a note to themselves.
So Laura, my apologies for always interrupting, but I'll tell you, when you've got that screen up, it just begs a question. Have you got any of your clients who use that history as a way of kind of matching up or monitoring the performance of an individual? So maybe maybe in my first 90 days, I was asked to meet 4 department heads in my area, 3 analysts, and 1 lead for something, something along those lines, where you're really, to your point of the history, that's what we tend to forget. And a year later, when we're doing annual reviews, we say, okay, what did I do? So this is a wonderful tool. I'm just wondering if people are using that to go more than just who do I meet, but is this part of a plan, a development plan, a personal plan, whatever the case may be.
That's indeed a great idea, but no, at the moment I don't know whether they're using it this way or not. But to your point, this is indeed, as we will be integrating artificial intelligence, this is something, and mentoring, right? This is something we want to look at. Which connections are the most proved to be most productive? Basically, we want to take that information into account when doing further suggestions whom people need to meet, depending on their career goals.
That's great. Thank you very much.
So our take on mentoring. So in exactly the same manner as people fill in their profile tab, where they say the preferred frequency setting and they choose a generic area of interest for social meetings, every employee is encouraged to fill in this form where they choose one or more than one of 5 categories of their expertise to be potentially a mentor. So the groups are career management and progression, personal development and growth, onboarding and company overview, overview of my role, department or line of business, or specific skill or domain expertise. If they choose specific skill or domain expertise, there is this smart field where people start typing and it gives them suggestions. We have a database of 2,000 skills so that they can choose which areas they can mentor their colleagues. For each of the chosen areas, by default, we say that anyone can reach out to you, but you can choose it and change it to specific group. If you choose specific group of your potential mentees, you can narrow it down by seniority or department. So for example, me as Laura, I might be only comfortable to guide somebody on career management and progression if their seniority level is junior or mid-level, right? But on my knowledge of fintech, payments, and JavaScript, I'm happy anyone to reach out to me, even my CEO. So everyone fills in their profile, and at the same time, anyone can request a meeting. And then in this request form, we ask, what would you like to discuss in your next session? And this is the same categories of 5. I want to get advice on career progression. I want to find someone with a specific skill, or I want to learn more about someone's role or line of business or department. And then we ask, are you happy to meet anyone, or you have a specific profile in mind? Then you say, okay, either anyone, or no, I want it to be a person from X department, X seniority level. And then the system will find you the perfect match, look at the schedule, look at the calendars, and schedule the time that works both for you. So in that way, we're really replacing long-term, upward-looking traditional mentoring schemes with this quick, on-demand, non-committal sessions. And we give the possibility for employees, instead of benefiting from just one officially assigned mentor, to assemble a network of experts depending on their immediate needs and tap into that network depending on which exact need they have at that point in time. So my fundamental, and I invite everyone for an open discussion here, but my fundamental belief is that we all know that there is no such thing as careers for life anymore. We all come with our own wealth of experience and our own unique background. And if in certain areas I might need a help and I might need a mentor, I'm sure that in other areas I can actually help someone, right? So I can be a mentor in one area, but a mentee in another. So that's what the tool is designed to do. And the next think that we are originally we saw that that's going to be on our pipeline in a couple of years, but we decided to test now with a few companies whether this is something they're interested even now. In case the system cannot find an expertise internally what employees are requesting for example, a few employees is looking for somebody who can guide them on Python skill, and our system just cannot find anybody with that skill, to offer companies to bring that expert from outside, but that would already be for a fee. So that's our take on mentoring. It's really on demand and not far from being traditional.
So, folks, a little bit of questioning. Anyone want to offer something? I always have some questions. You know that, Laura.
Yeah.
So in the absence, and again, I'm watching the chat, but I'm not seeing anything coming. So I'm curious about the domain situation. So again, the one thing, and I'm saying this just from the sideline, so I don't know what it really means to having to develop it in your product, but it strikes me that many companies, in a cultural perspective, have terms that they don't go outside the boundaries of that company. In other words, do a PE3 and an A4 on it or whatever, and then people are going, what the heck does that mean? I don't even understand what you're talking. So I know that there's a lot of AI products, and I heard you talking about moving to the using artificial intelligence within the context of maybe even the matching and that. If you're building a lexicon, I see that AI is helping a lot to take terms and saying the synonyms of those terms are these things. And the more that people are throwing stuff into the system, it is sorting through and say, I think I'm going to match it over. No, that didn't seem to look good because people moved away from what I suggested as the synonym for this word. It's showing up in recruiting for, in that kind of stuff. So I'm just thinking that, the domain to me actually addressed the question I had that I was going to say, well, if I want to, I'd ask the question about the function. I really want to just meet somebody who knows blah, whatever blah might be. And I might call it one thing completely different than what the company calls it. But I think you're on a track that is going to increase.
You're absolutely right. There are very easy ways to use the synonyms, abbreviations, synonyms, that kind of stuff. But then there is even more advanced way to think of skills as clusters. So the way it's going to work, like, okay, somebody knowing, like, I don't know, React and JavaScript and whatever, likely to also know Node.js. Or this skill is very close to another skill. And then it starts, and it can be used two ways. Yes, indeed, to find the relevant person in the absence of exact match, but then it also can be used to help to upskill your existing employees, because you say, okay, everyone is looking for artificial intelligence knowledge within company. I don't have anyone, but I have some employees who know data analytics and who know some other things. It will be the easiest for me to upskill these guys in the new skill that everyone is demanding.
So I'm writing myself a note to introduce you to one of our previous Technology Review Council folks, Srini with IGO. He has probably one of the most advanced AI products out there. So I'll commit myself to do that one.
What is it?
In this world of the startup world, there's so many ways that I think partnering would help everyone to bring to the market a much different thing. So to your point about, I'll call it a corporate lexicon, because that's really what you're trying to build. And I think, in all honesty, that the more I see what you're doing with the product, not to extend it any further, because you want to get some good traction with what you're trying to do, but in the very simplistic thing, if I were a manager, let's say, and I don't know how to do a promotion because I have never done one, and there may be videos, there may be even a policy sitting in some intranet situation I can read through and that kind of stuff. How about if I just go talk to somebody who does this? Not necessarily, not even in HR, because HR says, well, here's how you're supposed to do it. They're the authors of the process, but they're maybe not the people that even use it. So in a sense, I could say, can I connect with somebody who's done promotions here?
Yeah.
because there's maybe even a cultural perspective or maybe some thinking that goes behind it or whatever you're doing. That's that kind of tribal knowledge that you're capturing and making much more available through your product. That's what I see that we're losing every time somebody leaves a company or retires or whatever. We're losing that tribal knowledge. So in a sense, you can say, well, look at all the people who came to know because he's old and knows a lot. But they go to him for this stuff. Let's go
Yeah.
talk to him before he leaves us, because
Yeah.
that knowledge walks out the door. It's a loss to the organization.
Exactly. And then the large organization, the more knowledge is stored in there, right?
Yes.
Then they use it. And as I started my describing how we came up building this tool, it's always boils down to people you speak to, right?
Yes.
Your entire career depends on people you meet. So the mission of and the purpose of Down for Coffee is really to bring these relevant connections at the right time so that people can achieve their potential, they can upskill, they can advance their careers, they can find friends. So it's all about managing and nurturing and building new connections in the world of work, which is rapidly changing.
So I'll ask this question because I think from a level setting perspective, I'd like to understand a little bit. I have a question sitting out there, but when you go to sell this, who do you think your primary contact person in a company would be? Where most appreciated would your product fall in terms of
Very
position?
good question. HRs, obviously, but somebody with a little bit of a strategic role who see the benefit clearly and have a bigger picture.
Yeah,
So,
I don't disagree with you in that sense. Although again, HR sometimes is so inundated with this perspective. Um, it just strikes me that there's just and maybe it's folks in the audience, if you can help me a little bit on that, that'd be great. I'm just trying to search in my mind the best place where this would start and maybe get a little traction with the need to bring people together. And I think the metrics that which is the next question I was going to ask you, if you can show us a little bit of the metrics you track, it strikes me that I would be able to see much more of the workings of the organization through your product and who's connecting with whom to get things done. And I want to say that in the world of analytics, we're in a really, really great position to say, so if Nove is talking to Laura all the time, what's happening with Laura and her work, and is she getting better at what she's doing, or is Nove slowing her down, or
yeah,
is Nove growing in his perspective of what he's doing, and he's taking on bigger projects because of the connection? To me, it almost sits in, I hate to call it organizational development because that's almost an ancient word, but that's really what it is. It's organizational development. How do we make the best use of our workforce, take the organization away, use them effectively? And I'm not sure where that really
yeah.
falls these days. Anybody out in the audience wants to mention or thoughts about it, I'd love to hear it, because I think Laura would probably welcome a little bit of that discussion as
Yeah.
well. If not, I'll go pick on somebody. So my very good friend, Mr. Hill, he's always he's a great businessman, knows a lot of things and interacts with people. Dennis, how would you maybe think through that question about where's the best place for Laura to go out to an organization? And again, I love the fact that it's scalable. It doesn't have to be big. It can be small because of disbursement of the workforce. That's a valuable tool. We're just connecting people. I don't care how big or small it is. So I'd love to hear your answer if you don't mind.
Yeah, well, the nature of what they're gathering is what we called back in the 1980s expert systems, because of the flight from work because of retirement, and and that has not changed. That really hasn't taken off the way it should. And we see that even with the great resignation going on right now, the numbers of people, what they have going on, mentoring, and the whole idea of working together nurtures the social nature of this, but it is complicated, because of the well, the potential legal ramifications, right, of
Oh, okay.
non-disclosures and things like that. So I'm thinking if it touches people, it touches HR. I've always felt that, that HR has the custodial responsibility for the relationships, between employers and workers, whether those workers are W-2 or 1099s, seems to be different right now. Used to be 1099s fell under purchasing in the AP area, but over the last 20 years, that's changed. So all workers in an organization, I think the place to reach would be, as you said, that maybe the training folks that are responsible for that in larger enterprises in order to retain that knowledge.
Yep.
As a secondary role, I still think it has to come in through the front door at HR.
Mm-hmm. That's good. You mentioned contractors, and Laura, I think I asked that question. You said there was absolutely no stop in your system that would not allow a contractor to do this.
Right.
And I think that's one of the key things that, number one, culturally, if you want a contractor to really feel part of the family, so to speak, this is a great way to make that happen.
Yeah.
Secondly, as a contractor, you probably have, in some cases, know even less than a new employee because you're not connected in any real way. Somebody in AP is paying your invoices and somebody is telling you what to go do. But I think this would be, I think that's a very large selling point these days, especially in the distributed workforce. You just treat your workforce as one big homogeneous family. I know that California law would like to tell you differently, but nonetheless, the perspective is. So yeah, I think you're on a really great track. So do you mind touching on a little bit on the metrics and that, if you got those kind of things you would display?
At the moment, it's quite simplistic. We measure the number of coffees, the number of active users, and then whatever comes out from the feedback form, i.e. whether people knew each other before. That way we can trace how many new introductions the system facilitates. What came out of the meeting, 4 options. Let me actually show you here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What came out of the meeting, either people say nice meeting, feel good now, or I learned something new, or actionable plan made, or nothing much. That way we see how useful people find it, and that's pretty much it. For the future, once the mentoring is in place, then there is a huge scope of a lot of data to capture, especially on what are people requiring in terms of mentoring, right? What are the skills they're looking for internally? Yeah, so there's like, it opens up so much. And then once we know people's skills, and once we integrate potentially with existing systems to extract the skills, and once we know people's career goals, we can then start making recommendations for even social meetings. Like if you know that Laura in sales department has X number of skills and really wants to move to a different department going forward, and then we know for a new role that she is dreaming about, she will require X, Y, Z skills, and then we can start putting her in touch for some soft social meetings with the relevant people.
Gotcha. I didn't ask this question, but it strikes me that it's maybe another extension that says, can I create a group meeting more than just one other individual? Okay. Do you see value in there? I guess I should ask the question, do you think there would be value in having, I mean, you're on sitting on MS Teams, we're in GoToMeetings. I mean, we could do anything we want in this platform, but I'm thinking if people said, can I create a community out of my interests and others like me through your product, and leverage that as creating this kind of a dialogue community of communication?
Communities, in complete fairness, probably less so, like less creating like a group like it is in social media, probably not. But that will come naturally if you just find and get matched, or find a specific expertise, or get matched with people you're interested to meet. Then it will sort of naturally create your own little expert network of experts.
And if you're waiting for that AI to show up and help you, one of the things there was an organization or a vendor that had created something. It was called Trust Sphere, I'm not quite sure if they're still in existence. I should go back and take a look. But they literally, through survey, would ask people, okay, so Laura, who do you go through or go to for the kinds of information for your job? Very much what you're looking for here in kind of knowledge exchange.
Yeah.
But what they did was they created a heat map that said, Nov goes to these 4 people in the organization. And we go over to Laura, and Laura goes to the same 4 people. And pretty soon we have this trail of connections, if you will, in the heat map that says everybody's going to this small group or this one person or whatever, because there's either a lot of knowledge in it. I think that's kind of I mentioned earlier, kind of a useful byproduct of what you're doing. You're not creating the networks; the people are creating the networks, and that's a very natural phenomenon. Being able to, in a sense, look over people's shoulders to see how that looks, and from an organization standpoint, to me that would be a relatively interesting. I'm a data junkie, so I basically thrive on oddities and information like that. But it strikes me that would tell me an awful lot about how the organization is actually running these days. Who's doing what for whom? So
you're absolutely right. That and is it, what was the name of that organization who created this heat space?
It was called Trust, TRUSTSPHERE, Trust Sphere.
Oh, interesting. I'll check them out. It's indeed something in.
You go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just said that it's indeed something very like adjacent, what you can start doing as a byproduct.
Right. So and being in the cloud, I'm again thinking that you as a vendor, in a sense, you have the ownership around the data as long as you're not down into the individuals and crossing privacy lines. You can potentially see even trends. In other words, maybe as you're going forward, helping companies understand how best to establish early networks. By the way, we're finding that new employees find these kind of early networks of either peers or introductions or things like that are the kind of things you could almost set up small templates of connections.
Exactly. And the small templates for campaigns as well. Like go observing throughout organizations who's doing what proves to be the most successful, and then even creating this simple template that it's only one button click, saying, okay, onboarding, why don't you just automatically populate this campaign for onboarding, for cross-team collaboration, or you're opening a new office, or you just been merged. Why don't you bring people together from different legacy companies?
Exactly. So we are at 10 minutes before the hour. Did you have any further things that you wanted to present, Laura? I didn't want to cut you off on anything, but I'm about to ask this audience a little different of a question, and I think they're going to enjoy it, but we'll see what happens. But do you have further things that you want to show?
No, I'm looking forward to questions if anyone wants to.
So I will ask again, just again, no reason to be quiet because my perspective is this is the Technology Review Council, and so everybody has a vote. But I'm curious about. I spoke with Laura a little bit about the possibilities of associations, especially membership associations, where I'm paying for the privilege of learning or connecting or doing something with my discipline. Maybe it's an association, well, like IREM, an HR technology organization. Any of you out there in the audience who do belong to associations, do you see any value in something like Down for Coffee going to that level and then creating these connections for members? I'm just curious, just thinking out loud, if you will. Anybody want to volunteer anything? So far, no.
Oh no, they put me on the spot there a little bit.
I always like to put Dennis on the spot. I was going to put Bruce on the spot right behind it, and then I was going to say, Wanda, I need to hear from you too. So go ahead, Dennis. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I definitely think that the biggest thing today, especially among the changing work environment and what we're doing, anything that is a timely connection that offers great value, which Down for Coffee certainly seems to have the potential to provide, might be very attractive in doing that kind of networking. And because it's at the association level, you typically would not necessarily have to be concerned about direct competition, NDA type nonsense like I was referring to before. So I think building communities is key. This is a community building kind of activity. So I think it's good. I would think it'd have value.
Okay. You know I'm going to be on Hiram's doorstep pretty soon with Laura in hand. So I just thought of that. Dennis is on the board. He's our new vice chair of the board for Hiram. So I don't want to miss anybody else. I mean, certainly, Oral, you've been very, very good at asking questions. Cindy, please, Mitch, any, I would ask Roy, but he left. I was going to give him a tough time. But Bruce, I'm curious, just from your standpoint, being so immersed in the learning and that environment, what are your thoughts about this?
No, I think that anything that drives connection is a good thing, and that's certainly what you have with this application. So the ability to leverage those internal resources. I mean, a lot of the things that I think about is the fact that the great unwashed out there in organizations all have value they can add, and Laura made that comment earlier. And so if there's a way to tap into that, first of all, it's just a great strategic advantage to an organization, because you never know where the next good idea is going to come from, and that could unlock some of those ideas in organizations. And again, one of the famous Gallup questions is, do you have a friend at work? And people, having those relationships at work keeps people involved. And we talked about you mentioned a great resignation on people are finding, given the change, the dynamics in the marketplace today, people are saying, I can get jobs different places because there's a lot of openings. And so, if you're not really committed to your organization and find a lot of value there through, what you do, what the company does, and what your colleagues do, you're liable to look around someplace else for an opportunity. So I think this is going to become more and more critical, especially as we recover from whatever this pandemic has been and what that's going to do to us as we move forward, with people maybe having some choices between where they work, how they work, et cetera, et cetera. Those connections become even more critical.
Good points. Good points.
Thank you, Bruce. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Like when we have friends, and I think there is even some official statistics, when people have friends at work, then they are just more loyal to the company. They feel at home. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's funny you asked the question about the friends, or point out the friends. I see more referral programs asking the single question, would you refer a friend to this organization? And it's kind of an engagement suggestion. If I'm saying no, I wouldn't, well, that means I'm probably dissatisfied with working here already. So it's kind of one of those major. To your point, if I'm willing to bring my friends to come work for us because they're going to either like me or not like me for doing that, that's a pretty good indication. And you're right, you feel much more comfortable working. But in this remote environment, I'm just curious a little bit, and I don't know psychologically how that works for anything. Maybe you've got a little bit of a perspective on it. How do I really build relationships if I am an introverted type of person? How do I, or do you have ways that maybe you could bring augmenting training or coaching or something like that would help somebody?
The two elements to this question. One is a bit more high level, that from and I'm sure it's everyone's experience. That was my experience during my employed career, that you hardly make this first step. I think everyone is a bit afraid of rejection, and especially if it's an introverted person. So down for coffee, because it matches people randomly. And you don't even have to go and schedule a meeting. You sort of just need to show up to the meeting. That already eliminates this barrier, right? This need to make this first step.
Nice.
And secondly, to address the question, how do you make introverted people at ease so that they don't stress out of the upcoming meeting? two options. One is we're really thinking of adding little like icebreakers, some conversation starters, something for social meetings, for mentoring, also giving a little bit of guidance, keeping a nice balance, not playing like a school telling people how to behave, but also helping them a little bit, so keeping this nice balance. But also, as I said, as we are looking to start bringing in experts from outside, one of those would be, yes, some domain experts, but also career coaches, confident, like public speaking, like any of those skills that employees are looking to improve. I really want to start bringing these experts from outside.
I don't want to miss Cindy's comments, Laura directed. Thank you, Laura. I like the app and I love it. Thank you, Cindy. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and she mentioned something. I'm writing myself another note to introduce you to a gentleman out here who created a company called Dotton. And Dotton is another kind of an artificial intelligence matching profiles for people with like, thinking, if you will. I want to be surrounded by people who think like me. I'm not sure that's a smart idea because then I would be fighting them all the time. But the point of it is, yeah, he actually started his company with the name Icebreaker, and he was gearing it up for college students, first year college students, how to create friendships on campus. This was at the time where we were actually on campus, finding people for study groups, things like that. And he had lists of questions for conversation starters. I would like to bring the two of you together because that might be an interesting.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that would be perfect match.
Very cool. Well, I'm watching the hours. Is there any last comment, anything that anyone would like to offer? Again, Cindy, thank you very much for your compliment. I think, Laura, that makes the day for me.
That makes the day for me as well.
Well, great. Well, again, thank you all very much. We have others coming up in the next month. Laura, I can only say, again, every time we talk, I keep coming up with more questions. It's a great, great platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, my pleasure. And I hope we're going to hit a couple of watches on the YouTube channel. But I will be calling you next week, and we'll chat about some of these connections and so on.
Yeah, perfect. Thank
you
you
very
so
much,
everyone. Hope you have a great weekend.
Thanks.
Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Laura, are you still on?
No, unfortunately, she's gone.
I know. It's
How are you
Cindy
doing?
Pascal. I'm good. I was going to ask her who the owners are of Down for Coffee.
I just saw your comment. I have not even. I try not to do too much web surfing to find these people. I just like talking to the person because I get that passion. It's a great question. I will grab it out of the chat and send it on to her with you as a copy on that one, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. She might not even know that it's on there.
Yeah, that's the marketing people again. Thank you very much. Well, how are things going for you? Keeping pretty good?
Good. Yeah, I sold Motto about a year ago. And I am just finishing up my contract with them.
Oh,
and
very nice.
Yeah, and looking for what's kind of next in a part-time kind of, ease into retirement, but I'm not ready to be retired.
Yeah, you and I both. I just took on a 4-year project, and I'm not sure that I was smart in doing that because I should be well past the retirement age. But I'm having too much fun, way too much fun. So.
Yeah, I definitely have more gas in the tank. It's not a full tank though, but there's definitely gas in the tank.
But you get good mileage. Well, I'll tell you what, if I can ever help, that, shoot me your most current resume and let me know a little bit about it. I mean, I meet people all the time, and I'm always happy to, say, hey, I heard of this situation. What do you think? So on and so forth. That'd be great.
Okay, I will do that.
Good deal.
Yeah, and I'm actually interviewing for a board position with IROM.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what. I'll put it to you this way: if you're selected to stay on the board, so Dennis and I have worked together now for almost 2 years. I am what they call the chairman of the advocacy committee, which means our job is to go out and promote HR technology, the reason for IRM, the whole 9 yards. And I'm sure Jim's going to ask questions, Jim Pettit, of the board members saying, what would you like to do? And so you could be part of operations or education. I don't know if you have any preference, but if you don't have preference and would like to be with us for this Technology Review Council in Emerging Technology, College Relations, and General Advocacy is where it is. You're welcome to join us.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Sure, anytime. Well, knowing that you're in that mix, I'll put in a good word. I'm never sure if my word does anybody any good, but I'm happy to put in a word. Well, listen, it's a pleasure talking with you, and enjoy the holidays coming up. We will have a couple of, we will have one more meeting before we go into the holiday, and then we've got a whole slew filling up December. So hang in with us. I think there must be some fun stuff. There's another group coming through here. Let me stop this recording here. That would be a good idea.